Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Salazar. I'm here representing the Committee for Local Control of Santa Monica Airport Land. We're residents, neighbors, and regular folks. We're not a big Washington lobby, but we are grassroots, we have community support, and we're here for one goal. It's to support the voters' best choice, which is Measure LC, on the upcoming November ballot, and to defeat the deep-pocketed lobbyist measure, which is Measure D. I'd like to welcome everybody, all of our neighbors from Santa Monica and Los Angeles, and I'd like to introduce, they can just wave some of the, I guess we'd say dignitaries here tonight. We have City Councilman Ted Winterer in the back. We also have City Councilman Kevin McEwen. And I'm scanning the room. We have City Council candidates, Frank Gruber. And Michael Feinstein. And we also have a distinguished guest tonight, the 11th City Council District in Los Angeles, Mike Bonner. Who'll be
Mike, you also have Jerry Rubin.
Tonight we're going to tell you a little bit about the airport and what we're up against. And our campaign chair, John Fairweather, is going to go into the ins and outs of both of the measures. We're going to hear from folks that know the political side of this and what's at stake. It's our goal during tonight's meeting, and this is our first campaign kickoff meeting, is that hopefully you'll all have a better idea of how you can become part of this and help with this campaign. As you can see up on the screen, it's our land, and we picked that to represent the fact that it is our land. This is the airport. It's 227 acres, and that includes the entire airport. So if you look at this, you can see it's a pretty big space. Then we look again, and we can see, though, that it's not all aviation. And some of the things that people like about the 227-acre airport are the things that are noted in color, like to the south. We've got the Arts District, we've got Barker Hangar, the museum, we've got the College District, and of course we've got this small but mighty Airport2Park that hopefully will grow someday. Those are all in the south of the runway. And then to the north, we've got the business park that's been there since, I think, 1989. And then we have some other existing buildings that are ready to be repurposed and continue into non-aviation use. And of course, we also have Clover Park, which is in sort of the upper left, which again we hope will expand into the airport. Residents bought most of this land in the 1920s with a parks bond. They actually bought the rest of the land that wasn't part of the airport at that time during World War II, when the federal government leased the whole field during the war effort. At no time did the government actually own the land. It's always been in city ownership. And in 1981, the city council voted to close the airport. And out of that came the 1984 agreement, which it was sort of a long anticipated agreement that came out of that. And the main point of that is it was going to expire in July 1st of 2015. And the federal government has said in recent court action that the control of the airport land is a local land use matter, and as for the July 1st date. So that's why we're here, to retain local control and ensure that that's the future for the airport land. Now, if you look at this map here, it's slightly changed where it shows the aviation acreage, which is in the center. This is what we're all talking about. Nobody is talking about changing the arts studio, Barker Hangar, you know, all the things we like to go. It's just this. But we're having fear-mongering that's going on, and people are really scared. They think that they're going to lose everything at the airport. And they also think that there's no option here, but there is. Come July 1st, you know, hopefully the airport will be ours to do what we want to. But as some of you, probably most of you, received this mailer last week, and it's important that we realize what we're up against. Look at this, it's chock full of nuts, as they say. Half-truths, no truths, sleight of hand statements that make us think that they're us, but in fact, they can't be us. The airport land, 227-acre airport, is the last and largest low-density use in our city. That's what the brochure says. But they should, of course, fact check that. Low density, an airport is not. They seemingly made facts a low priority, as we all found out months ago when they hired the signature gatherers to come around. We heard things like save the airport and stop development, or save the whales, or sign for the Peace Corps. And of course the best line that one of my neighbors was told is, just sign it, then repeal your signature and I'll get my $20. So this is what money buys us. And we can see, you know, we really don't want to buy their snake oil. So we've got 145 acres here of what is essentially asphalt and concrete, jet hangars, helicopter pads, and the runway. And this essentially is a private aviation playground. It's hardly low density, and it's hardly neighborhood compatible. So their point that this broad open airport space is low density, this is one of many points of the voters' deception. And as you can see, they call their measure voters decide. The D is really for deception. So moving on, we'll have John Fairweather tell us all about the measure and the city's measure. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Fairweather and I'm chair of the committee that's been set up to propose this measure, and I want to just describe what the two ballot initiatives are and why you should care. This is the text that will be inserted into the city's charter by the city measure, and I'll go into this in detail in a minute. And the rest of the words all around the measure are just wrapping to deliver the payload. So this is the payload from the city's measure. And, oops. That's the wrong button. Okay, not the big one in the middle, but the small one on one side. I only bought the remote today, so I haven't actually been taking it back there to use it. Okay. And this is what the AOPA measure will insert.
John, use the microphone, please.
This is what the AOPA measure will insert into the city's charter. And again, I'll talk about that. So let's start with the...
Could you let us have 1 minute to read it?
This is the same text, I'm going through it. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's start with the AOPA measure. You'll see that the first thing it says is that voter approval will be required before anything can change the current aviation use of the airport. So First of all, this measure, this is the measure D, has nothing to do with development. It is all about maintaining the status quo here. The other thing that is in that sentence, in that paragraph, and this is the really scary thing, is that they have redefined the meaning of voter approval. If you read that carefully, it says the majority of the voters of the city voting yes on a ballot measure. That means the majority of all of the registered voters. And there's really no other way to read that. Why is that a bad thing? Well, a majority of the voters of the city means over 31,800 yes votes are required to do anything at the airport, to introduce unlimited fuel, to change the most trivial thing about what goes on at the airport. Because there are over 60,000 voters, so you need 1/2 plus 1 to get it to pass. The normal meaning of democratic vote is if there are 100 people vote and 51 say yes, it passes. So why did they redefine the meaning of voter approval? This is that graph shows the historical turnout in Santa Monica over the various elections. And in 2010, the highest number of votes recorded was 29,000. In 2012. And that included Malibu, by the way, because that was a school measure. 2010, 20,000. The bottom line is that in order to satisfy that criteria that they put, you would need a higher turnout than in Santa Monica's history to pass anything to do with the airport. And you'd need a 75% yes vote. Is that possible? Well, here's the history of all the ballot initiatives going back, and you'll see that that last column in red is the percentage of the total registered voters, and it hovers around 30%. Only once has it ever made it to 50%, and that was only just. So it is a very, very tricky modification of the city's charter we're talking about here. But now they say they didn't mean it. That wasn't what they meant. Well, first of all, they're the only ones that ever bothered to define what voter approval means in a ballot measure. So you have to wonder why they did that. So they must have had a reason. And that language was written by the law firm Reed and Davison, and they specialize in ballot measures and getting them passed. That's what they do. And they were hired by the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, who are the people that are funding this initiative in order to get the measure passed. They knew what they were doing, but they didn't think they'd get caught.
You got caught. I forgot again.
I just want to say thank you for letting us practice with you tonight.
Flora Yin, who was one of the original people that signed on the petition gathering thing, one of 3, is actually a partner in that law firm, Reed and Davison. They had to get 3 Santa Monica residents. She was one of them. And actually, as a matter of interest, another one was Laura Collin, and she's a major real estate developer, which really makes you wonder about the open and honest development decisions thing that they call themselves. But anyway, so on July 22nd, when they did get caught, they wrote a letter to the city attorney saying, no, we didn't really mean it. But sure they meant it. Of course they meant it. What they realise is it doesn't really matter what they write in that letter. What counts is what got put onto the ballot and what people will vote on. And that's what a court is most likely to decide. And so they can write any letters they want. It doesn't make any difference. And we're not stupid. We realize that's what the game is. So, denying people the right to vote, that's the basic thing. They want us to vote in November to take away our own vote, basically. And all of the specious arguments they might put forward is simply putting lipstick on a pig, but the fact is, it's still a pig. So who benefits from doing this? Well, here's one obvious group that benefits. This chart shows the rise in jet operations over time, and you'll notice what's happening at the moment. It's gone up about 30% in a year, and it's increasing at a massive rate. Santa Monica Airport is becoming a jet port, and they want to make sure that that continues, and that's why the big boys from DC are here. So those are the people that benefit from this. Who loses? Well, the city loses their losses subsidizing aviation. And all those subsidies are going into aircraft operations, not into the city's coffers. And we have an opportunity loss of about 100 million so far in terms of what revenue the city should have got if it had been allowed to charge fair market rates, which it isn't under the 1984 agreement, and they want that to continue, obviously, because they're making billions of dollars a year off that. Cities precluded from doing anything, restricting anything about what happens at the airport. And the community loses access to land that actually belongs to it and should become a park and playing field. So we all lose. But there's more. There, as Mike showed you earlier, this is the parcel map, and the purple area down the bottom is what's called the non-aviation parcel. Meaning the city negotiated for that land in 1984. But you'll notice that there are a bunch of airplanes parked in it, and that's basically because you can't do anything else because there's jets taking off right next to it, so they've parked some airplanes. Well, the AOPA measure has a very thoughtful retroactivity clause that means anything that was used for aviation can't be changed to anything else, so they're basically grabbing back that land. So, let's go through some of their tactics. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that's the basic idea. And the first one, the airport prevents high-rise buildings. And, you know, if you get rid of the airport, there'll be all these towering buildings everywhere. Well, that's not true. Residential zoning is what prevents the high-rise buildings, and if it was the FAA, how do you explain the Shores building, which is right directly in line with the takeoff path? It's got nothing to do with the FAA, it has to do with zoning. Well, they say that Santa Monica goes, big jets will be skimming the rooftops across Santa Monica. No. The city checked with the FAA about this, it's not true. Moreover, there are VFR flight cars at 3,500 and 4,500 for small prop planes, and there is no way jets are going to go below prop planes. That's just ridiculous. So this is yet another silly statement. Residents just want to increase their house values. No, residents want our land back. And we want the health and safety hazards to stop. And July 1st, 2015 was when it was promised to us by the FAA. We negotiated for it, and we want it. But people should have the right to vote. That's a great one. Who could be against that? Well, we agree. So why are you trying to take it away from them? Our measure was brought by the citizens of Santa Monica. It's called the citizens measure. Wow. Right, that's why you had to pay $20 a signature to get the thing on the ballot. And all of your financing came from Washington aviation lobby firms. The airport provides jobs for 1,500 people and generates over $250 million for the economy. This one is one of their favorites. No, there are 894 jobs on the airport campus, of which a mere 178 relate to aviation. It is just one of 42 industry sectors on that land, and 90% of the revenue on that land comes from non-aviation uses. And it would stay, whether SMO was to stay or not. The city makes money on the airport. No, it doesn't. The city's lost over $13.5 million in the last couple of decades. The council plans to make a Playa Vista there. No, City Measure LC clearly forbids any development without voter approval. In the meantime, only parks, playing fields, and that kind of thing is allowed, and it's guaranteed in the city charter. And every sitting council member has publicly denied this statement. What if there's a disaster? It's some fear going here. Santa Monica has two of the busiest freeways in the world going right through. It has easy ocean access. There's plenty of places for helicopters, which are what people actually use in disasters. And there are many, many airports nearby equipped for disasters, so we'll be just fine. The city's wasting taxpayer money in lawsuits against the FAA. Well, the city loses more money trying to run the airport, just as a matter of fact. But let's look at the litigation history. Here's all the lawsuits that have come up about the airport. And you'll notice one thing I've highlighted in the red. The aviation lobby groups, particularly the Santa Monica Airport Association, appear in more than half of all those lawsuits. They are bringing the lawsuits against the city. The other big lawsuit bringer is the FAA. In fact, the only lawsuit the city's brought is in 2013 against the FAA. Most people in Santa Monica like the airport. Well, 3 separate surveys have been published. One was the city's visioning, and they're involving over 2,200 people, and the results show that no, 80% of the people are opposed to the airport, and over 50% want it closed down completely. The data for all of these surveys is published, except, of course, the aviation one, which we've never seen the data to back it up. Measure M is supported by the people of Santa Monica. The city's Measure LC is by the politicians, not the people. Really? Well, let's look at who signed these things. Here's the people that signed for Measure D, and you'll notice I put them in red because they're all part of the Santa Monica Airport Association. The very same people that are out there pushing Measure D, telling you how public-spirited they are and how they want to give you the right to vote, and how the city's wasting money. These are part of the same group that has caused all that money waste. On the city's arguments, here's the people that signed. These are all well-known community members. And so you figure out who's telling a lie. So let's look at the city measure now. We've looked at what the AOPA measure does. Let's look at the city measure. If all part of the airport is permanently closed to aviation use, no new development of that land shall be allowed until the voters have approved limits on uses and development that may occur on it. In other words, nothing's allowed to be built on there, no development, no Playa Vista, unless the voters vote for it. So the voters get a real vote. You'll notice that all the time we went through the aviation measure, there was no mention of development. They pretend it's about development, but they don't care. If they lose and the airport closes, they don't care what gets built there. So that's why it's not mentioned. And also notice that it doesn't say the city intends to or will close the airport. It just says if any land is released, the people get to decide what gets built on it, if anything. Now, as far as the if anything, it says in that same paragraph inserted into the city charter, nothing is allowed to be done there except parks, playing fields, public open spaces and public recreation, and the maintenance of the existing cultural, arts and education uses, the existing ones. So all of those are protected. All protected, they might even get an upgrade, and nothing else can be built. Parks, playing fields, recreational uses, nothing else. In the city charter, nothing that can be done about it unless the voters say so. So that's a pretty amazing thing to be in the city charter. Just think about it. It's going to guarantee in our charter that nothing can happen there. That's about what's about to happen, unless we say so. And if we say no, we don't want anything, nothing happens. There's no getting around it. So, supporting City Measure LC, which is for local control, is a no-brainer. We'll never get another chance like this. All that acreage of parkland and stuff would more than double Santa Monica's total developed parkland. Right now, Santa Monica is pretty close to last in Southern California as the ratio of developed parkland to the number of residents. And this could leapfrog us at least halfway to the table in one go. Parks benefits, of course, include tourism, health, community cohesion, property values, clean air, water, all those things. And as an example, the New York City High Line Park, which has only been around for a very short time now, is now the number 3 destination in New York, and revenues are being bandied about in the billions as a result of that park. So parks don't cost money, they make money. Great parks. Communities crying out for parks, and the City Council has given us a way to get them. And all we have to do is vote yes on Measure LC and no on Measure D in November, and that's what we get. So we'd like to ask for your support, and we want to change the status quo. And what is the status quo? Well, it costs money to the city and to the healthcare costs, the loss of productivity from noise, all those legal costs, learning disabilities, lead pollution, fine particulate pollution from the jet fuel. Sustainability costs include 60,000 gallons of runoff a year as the beat that's lost. Surface heating, there's a temperature island there, goes up about 2 or 3 degrees as a result of all that concrete. Carbon footprint, 2.5 million gallons of fuel gets burned there every year. That is 50 million pounds of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is not exactly consistent with Santa Monica's green image. This is a horrible aberration. And just because this horrible aberration is in the far top corner of the city doesn't make it any less horrible. It's a problem for all of us. So, vote yes on LC and no on D. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you all for lights. So John has pretty much pointed out what we're up against. We've got a city measure that we're asking you to embrace. There's clear differences between the city measure and the one that's bought and paid for by the Washington lobbyists. Measure LC is all about local control, and as you're hearing tonight, Measure D is really all about deception. Before we go further, I'd like to introduce our campaign committee. I'm doing it at this time because you've gotten a primer on what these measures are all about. And there's one thing I have to tell you about our campaign committee members. We're all neighbors and residents. There's no hidden agenda here. We're all up front and we're here tonight. So those of you that are on the core campaign committee, would you please just stand up and wave. Next, I'd like to introduce some of the distinguished guests we have tonight. Our first is Councilman Mike Bonin. This cause, and he's worked hard to modernize LAX, but at the same time, he's worked equally as hard to prevent the expansion into the neighboring communities. He helped Bill Rosendahl push for a citywide bicycle master plan that we hope someday will come to our great park at the airport. He represents about 270,000 folks in Los Angeles, so I'd like to thank Mike for being here.
And most importantly is I want to see this airport shut down in terms of the park. This is a campaign and election that is basically set up to confuse. Two competing ballot measures, very deceptive. Just want to make sure that I'm in the right room. Is there anybody here in this room who thinks that the public health impacts from the pollution of this airport are bad? Is there anybody here who thinks the level of noise generated over residential neighborhoods? Is there anybody here in this room who thinks that it's absolutely unacceptable that the FAA has given waivers to have smaller runway protection zones at this airport? Is there anybody else who feels that maybe this airport and the way it has grown has outgrown the residential neighborhoods that surround it? Does anybody else share my viewpoint that it's a little bit crazy to have novice pilots flying over a residential neighborhood? So, I guess everybody here then supports Measure LC? Yeah. This is the most important moment in what has been a generations, plural, long battle over the fate of this airport and its impact on the neighborhoods that surround it. This isn't just a Santa Monica issue. It's going to be left to voters in Santa Monica, but it's an issue equally important to my constituents. But this is going to be tough. The folks who have put together Measure D are very smart and very simple, very well financed, and very sneaky. The way they have put this together, framing it as anti-development, framing it as local control when it is not, is kind of like someone putting a civil rights measure on the ballot that would repeal the Civil Rights and the Voting Rights Act of 1960. And these guys are going to have very, very deep pockets. They are going to misinform, and they're going to have the resources to get their message and their misinformation out. Their voices will be louder than yours, and they will be louder than mine, and they will be louder than Bill Rosendall's, and it's hard to be louder than Bill Rosendall's, and all of those who join with them. But we can still beat them. We can still defeat Measure D, and we can still approve LC. First of all, Santa Monica can't be alone in this. I am going to be calling on and trying to organize my neighbors and my constituents in the communities around Santa Monica Airport, in Venice and in Mar Vista and in West LA to contribute to this campaign. As I will, to knock on doors for this campaign, as I will. To make phone calls for this campaign, as I will. As I said, the other side is going to have more money. They're going to have more resources. They're going to have more slick men. We are going to have grassroots democracy. It can be done. I have seen candidates who were underfinanced and underorganized build a grassroots campaign and beat the odds and win. And we can do the same thing here. It's not going to work. We're not going to win if half of you go home tonight and say, boy, that Measure D is bad. I hope it doesn't win and make that the end of it. We are going to win if everybody in this room signs up on one of the tablets or one of the pads they have here tonight for a fundraising committee or a canvassing committee or a social media committee. It is going to take door-to-door shoe-leather. We have to get the word out. And we actually have to talk to people in other parts of Santa Monica who are not as invested in this issue, who don't understand the impact, what it's like to be Virginia Ernst living underneath the flight path, and what it's like to breathe that air, what it's like to hear that noise. They need to hear from the folks who live a few feet away from where a plane crashed near their backyard. Those are the voices they need to hear. I'm going to be with you. I know Bill Rosendahl is going to be with you, and I'm going to do everything I can to organize folks on my side of the border to join you in this fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I think we've got a really strong ally here, and I think Mike stressed a really important point that it's the entire community around the airport that we need at this point. And people in Santa Monica are listening. They get what's happening in Los Angeles, so I reiterate his call for help. Our next guest is a friend of mine. And I was thinking the other day, what could I say about Ted Winterer that might interest folks? So I thought, well, let me go online, and lo and behold, I found an IMDb page. But much to my sadness, it said, quote, "It looks like we don't have any biography for Ted Winterer yet." I thought, this couldn't be our Ted. Either way, I thought, well, maybe I should add something about it. Then I thought again, Ted's pretty big, and I've seen him mad, and not often, but he always gets his point across and gets his way, which is why we like him. I first met Ted on the street that I lived. He lived up the street from me in Ocean Park, and right away he was a personable guy. Really seemed interested in the neighbors, and so when he gave me the wrong address to say to stop by and chat sometime, I realized he also has a good sense of humor. Yeah. Ted's a friend, somebody I'm proud to say is one of my representatives on the city council. Seriously, Ted has done a lot for us. He's a former head of Ocean Park Association, commissioner on the Recs and Parks Springboard Commission to the city council, planning commission as well, and right now, good for all of us, he's on the city council. Please give a big round of applause.
Thank you, Mike, so much. Mike Boner already very clearly laid out the path to success this fall on these two measures. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more. But first I'm going to tell you a story. Something happened to me about a week ago in Ocean Park. I walk along with my 8-year-old boy, right up the corner of Ashland and 7th Street. There was a house with 2 no jet signs on it. My son said to me, "Dad, what do those signs mean?" He said, well, I said, well, it means that people who live there, they don't like the jets from Santa Monica Airport. And he thought about it for a minute, and he said, how do they see the signs from the planes when they're flying overhead? So, I have nothing against those no jet signs. I like them. Those of us who have been around a long time remember when there was a big no jet scanner across Santa Monica Airport. They're wonderfully recognized. But my son's observation points out an important lesson for all of us in this campaign, is that we have to be aware that we have to get our message across to the people who aren't in this room, who don't live in Sunset Park, who don't live in Ocean Park. We need to carry our message to the people in mid-cities, in North Montana, and all around the city where this is not a significant an issue to them on a day-to-day basis. And we have to carry that message in a simple manner, something that's easy to understand. Something like, vote yes on C, vote no on D. We need to carry that message with persuasive arguments that are easy to fathom, and we need to do so aggressively. As has been pointed out, we have an incredibly well-funded opposition. We're never going to match them dollar for dollar. We're going to have to try to keep pace with them. So I encourage all of you in this room to do whatever you can, donate as much as you can towards this campaign as soon as possible, because the time is now. They've already sent out their first piece of mail. We also, as Mike Bowman pointed out, need to have a ground game. We need to have people out in the field going door to door all fall long. It's the most important thing you can do. If you can't donate a lot of money, you can donate some shoe leather, as Mike pointed out. You can go out there and persuade those neighbors who live in the northern end of town why this is such an important issue for the entire city. We also need to be unified behind this common message. You know, there are people from different groups in this room now, from CRAP, from CASMAC, from SPA, from Airport2Park. And I can tell as a council member, we often get different messages about the future of Santa Monica Airport from those different groups. But this fall, we all need to be unified. We don't need to be bickering over different things. And I think we can do it. It's a formidable challenge, but I think we can win. And I tell you why. I think our opposition's campaign is predicated on fear. They're currently using the fear of development as part of their campaign strategy. But even more, the root of their entire effort is based on fear. They are afraid of any change to the status quo at Santa Monica Airport. Think about it. Why are they running this campaign? They keep saying, well, you can't do anything. The FAA controls that land. They'll never let you close the airport. They'll never let you curtail operations. They'll never let you reduce the runway. Well, if that's true, if we can't do that, why is Measure D on the ballot? Because we can. They're scared. Our campaign, on the other hand, is based on hope. Our campaign is based on hope for constructive change for the betterment of everybody who lives in the city. Our campaign is based on hope for a road grid that cuts through the existing airport lands and reduces traffic in this area of town. Our hope is for more park space, for the possibility of locally generated renewable energy on some of that land. Our hope is for a cleaner and greener future for 227 acres of our land. So that's why I think we can win, because I think that if we all pull together and work together, hope will always prevail over fear. So thanks so much for coming out today.
We'd also ask at this point, we have another city council member here, Kevin McEwen. Kevin, if you would come up and give us some words.
I just had oral surgery, so I'm going to be a little bit brief and maybe a little bit muddled. But I'm sure you can get this message. It is time. We've waited a long time for this. This is the moment where we can take action. And Ted was right. If we didn't have the power in our hands to close the airport, they wouldn't be spending this kind of money. They wouldn't be putting these kind of lies out. So this is our moment. I mean, we've all waited for 2015. There were a lot of pages on the calendar to be torn off before we got here. Are we together now? That's the question. Are we? can win this, and we will. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Unfortunately, Ted Lieu is not able to be here tonight. Ted Lieu is somebody we've all grown to count on. His efforts in the state senate and currently in the assembly and currently in the state senate have supported public transit throughout our region, authored laws on public safety, the environment, and transportation. Ted served in the state assembly for 6 years and was elected in 2011 to the California State Senate. As a senator, he's worked on a broad spectrum of bills, including workforce funds, protecting the right to strike, assisting victims of corporate fraud, and animal cruelty and abuse. Ted has shown strong leadership at the state level to address the airport health and safety impacts on the surrounding communities. And he's pledged his support numerous times for the closure of Santa Monica Airport, and is currently running to represent our 33rd Congressional District. Please welcome our own fearless crusader, one of our committee members, Marty Rubin, to read a statement from Ted Lieu. Concerned residents against airport pollution. For 11 years, they've fought the hard battle, and we're happy to say we're joining with you, Marty, now.
Thank you, Mike. Thank everybody for coming out. I'm honored to read Senator Ted Lieu's statement, future Congressman. Statement from Senator Ted W. Lieu. Thank you all for attending this kickoff event, which will be focused on disseminating the truth and the facts in order that Santa Monica voters will be able to cast an educated vote in November regarding the future of Santa Monica Airport land. I have advocated that the decision regarding the future of Santa Monica Airport land lies with the city of Santa Monica and those affected by the airport. The two opposing ballot measures are clearly different in their intent. I oppose the measures sponsored by the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. The city's proposed charter amendment will truly honor the wishes of Santa Monica residents in determining how the land will be used if the airport closes. I fully support the city's charter amendment and urge all Santa Monica voters to do so as well. Thank you, Senator Ted Lieu. Just everybody here would be interested, I'm sure, that 1 month from today, in the business park north of the airport, CRAP's holding its 7th City Council Candidates Forum, and also for the State Assembly race. So go to jetairpollution.com for more information. I've done that flyer. Thank you.
The candidates forum is September 20th, so go on to the website and find out about that. Our last distinguished speaker tonight is Dr. Joseph Schmitz. Joe's a retired U.S. Air Force pilot and Santa Monica resident since 1985, renting and then buying a house in Sunset Park in 1989, as he notes, before the jets. He received his PhD from the Annenberg School of Communications at USC in 1990. He's taught courses in aviation safety for the FAA and research methods at the university level. He's also fielded surveys for the City of Santa Monica, U.S. Department of Commerce, and the National Science Foundation, among many other organizations. Joe has over 7,000 hours of flight time. Among these were jet transports, twin-engine helicopters, and as an Air Force safety officer. He was tasked with transporting the Secretary of Defense and other cabinet officials within restricted airspace, so he's about as trustworthy as they come. Let's welcome one of our residents, Dr. Joe Schmidt.
I'll try not to kill the slide projector. I've got about a 15-minute PowerPoint presentation, and I know you just want to sit through and get every bit. So instead of going through and reading this thing, you all can read it. And if you'd like the actual PowerPoint presentation, after I'm done, get a card from me, shoot me an email, and I'll get it to you. If you listen to the AOPA and their fellow travelers, they would tell you that at SMO, something like this, couldn't happen in 1,000 years. But it did last year. We're at 14th and Ocean Park. We're about 4,000 feet from the departure in runway 23. So if a Gulfstream 4 takes off, loses an engine, makes a hard right turn to try to land back at SMO, and the unthinkable happens, this meeting is adjourned. The odds on any aircraft crashing nowadays and in a jet aircraft are amazingly low. But when you kick up the number of departures, and you put VIPs that are insisting that you gotta go now, and you don't worry about the safety buffers, it's a matter of time. So let me take you through the high points and see what you think. Okay, so, yeah. Thanks. Yeah. All right. You can get this on Wikipedia. So it's just up there. If you click the next one, John. Bottom line is, in the last 25 years, we've had 7 multiple fatal accidents. If you looked at the slide, when you looked at the previous slide, the important thing is the severity of the accidents and the frequency of the accidents is increasing over time. So we got a problem. The last accident was the opening slide. I don't know what the next accident is going to be, but if we don't change the jet operations, we're going to find out. Maybe not this year, maybe not in 5 years, but we will. So let's see what we have. Most of the accidents are pilot error, and there's generally other contributing factors. Generally, the accidents result when a pilot gets in trouble and he or she tries to return to the airport. It's not a problem if you got a 3,000-pound Cessna and 100 gallons of gas, avgas. It's a huge problem if you got a 60,000-pound G4 with 30,000 pounds of jet fuel. So we saw what happened with a twin-engine jet Citation II about a year ago. The safety record sucks at Santa Monica, and it's gotten worse. Why has that happened? Well, the airport was never intended for these kind of high-density jet operations, and the safety buffers are frankly inadequate. Some of the things that you don't have are baked into the way the airport operates. So you don't have 500 to 1,000 foot overruns on each end. You don't have safe departure zones to protect people and buildings. You don't have open fields. We've got this airport surrounded by heavily dense urban environment. So if you've got a botched single-engine airplane that goes into Kenmore, that's a bad day at the office for a doctor, a lawyer, or a businessman. If you have a bad one with a Gulfstream 4, and it's a left turn into Venice, or it's a right turn into Sunset Park, it's a tragedy for the community. The FAA goals to have SMO as a real leader airport conflict with Santa Monica residents goals, and that goes for LA and Venice. An interesting question, if you get two more, John. An interesting question is, why aren't there more accidents? And if you think about it, accidents happen when you have weight hazards. It's almost like a block of Swiss cheese. Each time you pull a slice out, you get a direct hole from the hazards until the accident. And so if you can see the organization, and in this case we think about the whole SMO organization, we've already pulled some of the slices out. We don't have strict monitoring by the aircraft authorities in terms of the takeoff procedures and the gross weights. We don't have the overruns. We don't have the runway clearances, and we sure as hell don't have the open departures. So when it goes bad, it's going to go tragically bad. So this slide will give you an idea of the weight and hazards. These are baked into the system. If you look at these hazards and you look at the operations and you look at the increase in operations, something's got to stop, or we're going to have a major aircraft accident that wipes out a block. Okay, next slide, please.
Don't stand in front of me.
So what would the next aircraft accident look like? Probably a Gulfstream 4. Probably a night takeoff, because everything is worse. Probably a VIP who says I'm in a hurry. Probably a rolling takeoff that uses up the runway. And then you can have anything. You can have an engine failure. I personally had an engine disintegrate. You can have a flight control failure. You can have a false warning light. You can have almost anything or combinations of things. And that's going to happen. Is it likely? Well, individually, no. But 3 months ago, we had near Boston on a 7,000-foot runway, a crew, pilot and co-pilot, with 30,000 hours collectively. And they taxied off the end of the runway at about 190 miles an hour because they didn't do a full pre-flight and the controls were locked. If that happened here, it would wipe out a block and a half right off 23rd Street. So it's clear to me that the status quo is unacceptable. What can we do as a community? Well, we got to stop business as usual. We absolutely have to stop the mix of jet operations in this urban environment. We need to address the known hazards that Marty Rubin and others have in terms of the gas and the jet particulates. And you, each and every one of you, need to sign up and help in the effort. So, I give it to you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I just want to add a little something about safety. We've heard a lot of people raising concern about the runway and what would we do in an emergency. And there's something to consider about this. One is, how many of you were here during the Northridge earthquake? Okay, it's just about everybody. During that earthquake, what would have happened if we would have had to bring in urgent medical supplies, or if we would have had to add the National Guardsman? The fact is that Santa Monica Airport was closed, and it was closed for 3 days, the most critical time that we would have needed that airstrip for an emergency, and it was closed. And that quake wasn't even over, and is relatively far away. So it's just something to think about. The other thing is, what does San Francisco do without an airport? My God, it's practically the disaster central. Talk about big earthquakes. But the fact is that they managed extremely well. Most everything is going to be handled by helicopters. If there's something major that comes in, like San Francisco, we've got the ocean. We're not that far, but it's easy to scare everybody to think what would happen if we don't have that. So if you want more information about safety, definitely get in touch with Joe. Excuse me for that. Sorry about that. What's a campaign without fundraising? Well, our opponents have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars that we know of so far, and we haven't. Our opponents first called themselves, now, it's going to be long, it's 23 words and numbers, Santa Monicans for Open and Honest Development Decisions, sponsored and major funding by Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, Los Angeles, California, 90010 213 phone number. Well, with that mailer, they've now changed their name because AOPA brought in another big Washington lobbyist, the National Business Aviation Association. So now their name, like their bank account, has grown to 34 words. It's now Santa Monicans for Open and Honest Development Decisions, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Associations, Aviation, parentheses, with support from local businesses and pilots, major funding by National Business Aviation Association and Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. Even their offices at the airport. And it's too bad we can't afford an office, but if we did, it'd probably be in somebody's home or at a park. How many dollars? Already deep pocket lobbyists have spent double the amount that Eric Cantor spent on steak dinners. And we all know what happened to him. Despite a 40-to-1 fundraising advantage, he didn't win. So, something to keep in mind, we'll never match their money, but we must try to get close. Here to talk about fundraising is one of our campaign committee members, Neil Carey.
Thank you. It's because I'm from the north side, they give me this great job. But it really says something because, having lived on the north side for many years and being quite involved with the city, what I've learned is that while we're a small city, we're also each have our little neighborhoods and sometimes are totally unaware of what's happening in other neighborhoods. So campaigns, I've worked on many campaigns, and they're very expensive. And in this campaign, we know there's going to be a huge amount spent by the other side. Now perhaps it's more expensive to tell lies than to tell the truth, but it's still important that you have to get your message out. And we heard a lot tonight about the safety and the noise. Since I joined this committee and have been spending more time on Sunset Park, just sitting outside, you know the problem when the jets are coming over and you can't hear. But what's important is we have many people living on the north side of Wilshire that aren't affected the same way that many of you are affected. And so what is really important and really necessary for us to get the message across. Because as we sit here tonight, we all know the issues. We know the lies from the other side. But if you've ever been involved in politics in Santa Monica, you'll discover that an awful lot of people are unaware of the issues. And therefore, it is important to get the message across. We also have a lot of apartments and condominiums, so ringing doorbells don't work in those areas. Mailers are very expensive. They've gotten more expensive. To be an effective campaign, you need polling, you need slate cards. We have an excellent consultant, which is vital. But when you start adding all of these numbers up, and all of the campaigns I've worked on, you need at least $250,000, hopefully more, to have an effective campaign. And we have, and that's where there's no opposition on the other side. Because I think we have truth on our side, we have a lot of good people, all the people sitting in this room tonight, I think that we'll be able to have a very effective campaign at a lower amount than they're going to spend. But the key factor is, excuse me, if we don't get our message across, we can have a great message, but it will take money to get our message across, and it will take a lot of money. And so I ask those of you who live and are affected directly by the airport, from the noise, from the health hazards, if I came up to you and I said to you, how much would you pay me if I have a good shot of buying you peace and quiet? I'm sure you would all be shocked. So that's what I'm asking you, to dig deep and realize you're not necessarily financing a campaign, you're help financing peace and quiet. And then I ask people who may be from the north side, I know there are some of us here tonight, what about playing fields? How much would you pay to have more playing fields? I was on Wrexham Park Commission for 12 years. For all 12 years, and it hasn't stopped, all we talked about was the lack of playing fields, the lack of open space, the lack of parks, the fact that we're one of the lowest, not just in Southern California, but all over the United States, on parks to citizens. And so that's a message that we must get across to other parts of the city. But I asked people from the north side, if I came up to you and said, how much would you pay me if I could have a shot at building you a 200-acre park with many playing fields, how much would you pay? And so I'm asking those people to dig deep. I was actually part of the group that located the non-aviation land that led to Airport Park. And I was on Wrexham Park when we were studying and pushing for Airport Park. The opposition was great, but we did it. But to me, that was a dream that started more than 20 years ago, that I kept seeing a park. And I actually had a client that flew me out of Santa Monica Airport. And people said, well, you must love the airport because you're being flown out. And I said, if you put a park there, I'd happily go to LAX. Yeah. So I think that not just the people from the north side, but from all over the city, we need it. We need playing fields. It's really ironic that there have been statements made by IOPA that says, we don't know what we're talking about when we say that we need more parks. We have plenty of parks. And it just tells you the kind of messages they're giving. So the importance tonight, and to not just the people here, but to your friends, you really need to dig deep, because we really need to get the message. I believe that it's winnable for LC to win and for D to lose. But if we don't get the money to help us get it done, it's going to be a tough battle. So tonight you have envelopes, dig deep. When people ask me, why did you give generously? Some people said, even if it's a park based on your age, you're not going to be around to see it. But I said that's what they told me 20 years ago, and I'm still playing tennis courts. But I did it because I want to see playing fields, but I also did it because for someone that has worked hard in this community and worked to try to bring the community together, I want to lead the charge from the north side and let people know that in addition to the playing fields, we're one community, we have friends in Sunset Park. We also must do our part to make a healthier and safer environment for people who are affected by the
4 items, 3 pieces of paper and an envelope. There's a one sheet there that has a very brief outline of our measure and Measure D. There are committee contacts, names on there of the folks in each of the campaign committees we've set up. And there's the fundraising letter and the envelope in there. So feel free to copy them, share them with your neighbors, but please don't make paper airplanes out of them. Next, I'd like to introduce the remaining committee chairs. First, we have Andrew Gledhill, who's going to talk to us about logistics and operations.
Try to collapse the technology. Good evening, everybody. I'm Andrew Gledhill. I'm co-chair of the Operations Committee with Susan Harty, who many of you will know. Our job is to provide boots on the ground, to get out and talk to neighbours, to give them information. What we're looking for is to have somebody in each precinct, and ideally somebody on every block, who can put the word out there. And we hope to have some fun with it as well, with block parties promised, as well as doing some good work. And I'll be taking signatures at the back and names of people who'd like to participate in this. One other thought is, if you are already committed to working with one of the council candidates, I'm sure many of you are, don't see that as an obstacle. Please see that as complementary activity. I think all of the viable candidates for City Council are with us on this, which is very heartening. So whatever you do on this measure will be a part of your contribution to urban democracy in Santa Monica. So thank you very much.
Next, we're going to hear from Zena Joseph to talk about outreach.
Thank you. You don't know how good it makes me feel to see so many of you here tonight. And I hope if you have to leave early that you will definitely sign up on one of those committees before you go out. And we're just about to break up to do that. I'm on the Outreach Committee with Neil Carey, Mike Salazar, the great Alan Levinson, and Bob Brown, Michael Brodsky, John Northern. All of us are working on this. And one of the things we're doing is trying to make contact with groups in the city that could support Measure D. I'll see, boy, that's good. I'm sorry. It's not that we're nervous or anything. It's late. I know the meeting's running long. So if you have connections with some group, I'm working with some of the neighborhood groups. Please come to the breakout group and tell me what group you have contact with. We can send people to talk to them. And we really need to get all the organizations in the city behind this measure. Thank you so much.
Next, we'd like to hear from Michael Brodsky from the media.
Everybody, it's unbelievable to see everybody here. You walked, you rode your bike, you took the big blue bus. You came from Sunset Park, Ocean Park, Pico neighborhood, downtown, mid-city, northeast, north of Wilshire and Wilmot. I think I got it. Venice, Mar Vista, Rancho Park,
West LA.
West LA. This affects a lot of people. It affects all of you. There's loads of groups here. There's FSOP, there's OPA, there's SMERD, there's CASMAT, there is Airport2Park, there is SPA, there is the Sierra Club, there's the Audubon Society, there is Heal the Bay, there's Santa Monica Smoke. There are so many people that are in our neighborhood that are trying to make our community a healthier, better, sustainable, and more human place. And that's amazing. On Monday, there's going to be a meeting by the pilots. They're going to have the same sort of meeting, but it's going to be very different. The person who's going to be leading that is the president of the AOPA. He's coming from Washington, D.C. to tell everybody what to do. And he brought with him $100,000 from his organization. And he's being joined with the president of the NBAA, the Jets people. And he's also bringing $100,000 of his own money. So that's what we're up against. We don't have that money. We have people. Okay? So we're going to need you to put out 100 hours between now and November to make this a reality.
I will commit 120 hours.
Okay? $10,000 would be. If you can't do that, 10 hours would make a difference. And $100 would make a difference, okay? So whatever you have the ability to support, they've got all the money, it's just flying at them. They sent out that brochure. They had a phone bank of paid callers last week that called some of you. So we really have to step up. So the group that I'm doing is the social media committee. We have some absolutely incredible writers that have been working with us. We need more. We need bloggers. We need people who are going to speak up on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, start conversing about this topic. That is yes on LC and no on D. We need people to tweet. We need designers. We need a website manager. So there's a lot of people. Sign up at the back afterwards. I'm looking forward to meeting you.
Our fifth committee is the Events and Membership Committee. Here to talk about that is Vivian.
Hi everybody, once again my name is Vivian Whitten and I am chair of the Events and Membership Committee. So we were responsible for a lot of the logistics for this evening. So I just want to thank everybody involved in the organisation and of course everybody for coming tonight for this really important meeting. So if you have any event planning skills, if you have any catering skills, or if you just have some time to help us out with organising events like tonight, helping out on the registration desk, doing name badges, printing out materials, anything that's got to do with events, please join our committee and so we can put on more successful events like this.